The bike industry is an ever-marching procession of new cycling tech and innovation. Some of this progression is good, and some of it not so good. This leads to many comments of, they're just trying to sell us more bikes, or do we really need Part X or Bike Y? And sometimes we have to agree with you. We're not 100% sure on some of the innovations we've seen in recent history. However, the bike industry often gets it right, and perhaps this is nowhere more apparent than with cross-country bikes, which now look drastically different to what we rode only 10 years ago. So with that in mind, here's some of the amazing ways XC bikes have changed and why this is a good thing for everyone who rides them. As always, don't forget to give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and let us know what you think in the comments. Perhaps the most striking place XC bikes have changed is the size of their wheels, with nearly every rider using 29-inch hoops in 2021. Cast your eye back 10 years, and while many riders were starting to realise the benefits of 29ers, many were still doggedly sticking to the smaller and up until then standard size of 26 inches. Now this would also have been down to sponsorship requirements. If your sponsor didn't make a 29er, then you couldn't ride one, even if you wanted to. But regardless, many riders were happy to stick with what they knew. And they had good reason. It took a while for the bike industry to get the geometry and components of 29ers right. Wheels could be flimsy, handling could leave a little to be desired, and it's no wonder some riders were still sceptical. However, in 2011, Czech rider Jaroslav Kulhavý won the first ever XC World Cup aboard a 29er. He then went on to win the 2012 cross-country Olympics aboard a 29er, and then from then on they gradually became the standard for XC racing. Fast forward to the present, and we can probably all agree on the benefits of 29er wheels. They can roll faster, give greater traction and increase comfort. Another huge change among cross-country bikes and mountain bikes as a whole is the advent of one-by gearing. And by that we mean group sets where there's one chainring at the front and one large range cassette at the back. Again, you don't have to go too far back to see XC bikes coming stock with a triple chain set at the front. One of our staff remembers their first XC bike, a Scott Scale from 2012, had a triple. Triple and double chain sets may have given riders a decent gear range and neat spacing for perfect cadence, but they were also trickier to maintain and keep in good working order. Just like any innovation, many riders and members of the bike industry weren't so sure when SRAM released their XX1 one-by gearing around 10 years ago. Surely 11 gears wouldn't cut it on the XC course. But gradually, pros and amateurs alike began to realise their benefits. One-by was easier to install, easier to maintain, could save weight and keep your bike looking clean. It also enabled bike manufacturers to build better full suspension bikes, as they were less constrained by needing to fit a front derailleur. The jumps between gear ratios may have been a bit bigger, but hey, it turns out nobody minded or needed the tight spacing of a double or triple. So go to any cross-country race today and we suspect it'll be one-by gearing on every bike, and that can only be a good thing in our eyes. Next up, we have geometry, and for this section we're going to focus on one bike, although you could apply these points to any XC bike from the last 10 years. The latest specialised Epic is perfectly suited to the demands of the modern day cross-country course, and that includes its geometry. We have a relatively slack 67.5 degree head angle, 4 cm reach in a size large, and a steepish 75.5 degree seat angle, all good things when it comes to pedalling and descending fast. Go back to 2012, and while modern at the time, the Epic's geometry now looks totally outdated. A 70.5 degree head angle would make the bike sharp in the turns, but also make it less confidence inspiring on the descents. The reach is also shorter at 438mm, and the seat angle is a little slacker at 74 degrees. That slacker seat angle may make it harder to get an efficient position for pedalling over the bottom bracket. It's worth noting we're painting in broad strokes here. There's lots of other figures which have influenced how a cross-country bike handles beyond the geometry numbers we've quoted here, but hopefully you get the gist. Geometry is a great example of how bike tech has kept up with the demands of the discipline. As XC courses have become gnarlier and more technical, brands have had to keep up by making their bikes better for descending while still maintaining climbing performance. This is why you'll rarely read an XC bike review in 2021 without a quote along the lines of equally capable on the descent as it is on the ups. And jokes aside, that's a good thing for all of us. Correct us if we're wrong, but we think the 2012 Olympics were won using 2.0-inch tyres. However, we suspect any riders racing the 2021 event would be pretty upset if you told them they would have to race on such narrow rubber. Over the last decade, the wider tyre trend has played out across the whole of the cycling spectrum. The conventional wisdom used to be that narrower tyres would roll faster and save you a bit of weight, both important things in an XC race. However, while a narrower tyre may save you some grams, a wider tyre will be better in almost every other way. They're able to roll faster, will provide more grip, more comfort, and can reduce the chance of an untimely puncture, all good things for the budding cross-country racer. There's still some debate over which tyre is actually fastest, and there's probably no definitive answer to that question. But for now, it looks like most riders go for either a 2.3 or 2.4-inch tyre for XC racing. We've done our own experiments into tyre width, and you can find links to those in the video description. As someone once said in a film about spiders, with great power comes great responsibility. And that's true of the modern XC bike. Your optimised tyres, geometry and wheel size have given you the opportunity to travel faster than ever. But you need to be able to control that power, and for that you're going to require wider handlebars. Looking once again into our XC-shaped crystal ball, you don't have to go too far back to see bikes coming with handlebars under 700mm. Look even further back and they even start to go under 600mm. Why would anyone ride such narrow widths? Well, the speeds are slower back then and the downhill's less technical. Plus, it's just what people always used, so why change? Fortunately for all of us, as speeds have gone up, so have the widths of our handlebars, with many XC bikes coming stock with either a 740 or 760mm bar. Can you imagine going back 15 years and handing the younger, better looking version of yourself a 700mm bar to race XC on? They would have thought you'd have gone totally mad. A bit like wider tyres, wider handlebars have become standard across the whole mountain biking spectrum. They allow you more control on technical sections, can improve bike fit, and some riders think it helps open up their chest for breathing. Either way, it's another great example of how tech has moved on in the last 10 to 15 years. Finally, we're onto suspension, which could really be a whole video in itself, so for now we're going to keep this general. Just like everything else on this list, suspension has come on leaps and bounds over the last decade or so. From Fox's electric lockout to lighter and plusher shocks, there's no doubt the bikes of today are much more capable machines thanks to the improvements in suspension. Take Specialized patented brain suspension. The unique design works using an inertia valve which automatically locks suspension out for you on smooth terrain. Hit a bump and the valve quickly opens up the suspension again. In principle, it's a brilliant idea, but in practice, early iterations gave the brain a somewhat Marmite following. The biggest complaint was a large clunk or knock that riders felt when the valve opened up again. You also couldn't adjust the sensitivity of the brain on the fly, which was no good if you're riding on varied terrain. However, just like everything on this list, Specialized has incrementally improved the brain over the years. It can now be adjusted on the fly on the forks, and the knock, while still being there, is much softer than previous generations at the rear. Another prime example of the amazing progression we've seen on XC bikes over recent years. Well done if you've made it this far. Hopefully we've been able to give you some insight into how XC bikes have changed for the better. As always, we'd love to hear what you think. Did we miss any out, or are some more deserving than others? Let us know down below. Finally, don't forget to like, subscribe and click the little bell icon so you get notified every time we upload a new video.